Everything you always want to know what's going on with the situations between me and anybody else that got problems with me. Cop that album and get all your answers. To all my enemies, mwah, one love.
On this.
All right? That's us. We give a shout out to the enemies.
About a dozen Crips were in this meeting. They were very, very, very angry. In the world of gangs, as I've come to learn, this is a very disrespectful thing to do, to beat somebody down in public. You almost couldn't get in a worse situation if you want to disrespect somebody to do that. And they decide they're going to kill him. They're going to kill Tupac for starting this thing. This was just something that had to be done.
Another person who reportedly felt that something had to be done was, shockingly, none other than the notorious B.I.G., who had allegedly been associating with Crips when visiting the West Coast.
So that night, this was just going to happen, but the gang's going to take retaliation. And they say, well, let's, we should make some money on this. Let's make some money on it. And they, according to the people that I have interviewed, said, there was this long-running feud that had been going on while it was really overhyped by the media as an East Coast, West Coast war. There was a kind of personal feud, a lot of bitter words, and between Tupac and Biggie. After that record came out, the people that I interviewed said this was very serious stuff. It's caused a lot of anger. After that record came out, they say that Biggie asked them to kill Tupac.
That statement is shocking enough. But Philip's sources, L.A. gang members, go on to claim that when they decided to fulfill Biggie's wishes, they didn't have to go far to tell him. That's because they say Biggie was himself in Vegas on that fateful night.
So they went to him and decided that night, we're going to kill him. He's wanting us to kill him, let's go get some money. And so they go to where he was staying, according to them, at the MGM Grand, under a false name. They went to him and said, listen, we're going to do it. You've asked us to do it. We're going to do it tonight. We're going to do it right now. And we want $1 million for it.
From his gun. Chuck Phillips concedes that his own theory is difficult to believe. At the very least, it certainly begs the question.
How could the notorious Big, how could he possibly check into a hotel, even if he used the alias? How could he check into a hotel and nobody see him?
I feel confident that he was there, and I feel that there were a number of people there with him.
Phillips' account of events, remember, is admittedly based solely on the word of anonymous sources, unnamed gang members. MTV News has been unable to verify any of his claims, and those close to Biggie were quick to dismiss them.
Big was in the studio early that day. They went back home and we watched the fight. We wasn't nowhere near Vegas.
One thing that really was a shocker to me was the name that they called out as the person who paid for Tupac's head. The $1 million coming from Biggie was the biggest wowzer I've heard.
In a cover story dated Friday, September 6, 2002, the award-winning journalist, who's been covering the Tupac case since its inception, dropped nothing short of a bombshell.
They say that Biggie asked them to kill Tupac.
That's right, Biggie. According to Phillips' sources, who it should be noted are anonymous L.A. gang members, Bad Boy recording artist the notorious B.I.G., Tupac's longtime lyrical nemesis, not only sanctioned Tupac's murder, he offered to pay for it. And in perhaps the most chilling allegation of all, supplied the actual assailants, Southside Crips from Los Angeles, with the murder weapon.
About 11:17 p.m. tonight, we had several vehicles traveling eastbound on Flamingo. Officers were at the Maxim Hotel investigating a stolen vehicle when they heard several gunshots being fired down below. The black BMW was traveling on the rims on the right side. Once they got here, they found that the passenger in the black BMW had been shot 4 times, and the driver appeared to be hit with a fragment in the head area. At this time, the wounds are life-threatening, but serious, not in critical condition at this time.
I noticed there were bullet holes all in the side of that door and in the front windshield of that car. So I grabbed the car door with my left hand while I still had my gun in my right, and I was trying to pull open the door. The guy who was sitting in the seat kind of fell out with the door. I grabbed him with my left hand and kind of brought him down to the pavement. He was still alive.
Well, all I remember is hearing the shots, the first shot rang out and it was like a cannon. I mean, basically it was so loud, I thought that my car was being shot up.
It caught you totally by surprise?
Totally by surprise.
When you first heard the shots, what did you do?
I was looking back through the rearview mirror and I seen Pac like trying to jump over the back seat and like a bunch of smoke in the car. My first instinct was that they both were dead. So I jumped out my car and ran back to the car and I looked at Pac and he looked and he gave me this crazy look like, whoa.
Did he say anything to you?
No, he didn't.
Just gave you a look?
Gave me a look. And then I shook, you all right, you all right? And he was just holding on to the steering wheel. It was like, he couldn't believe it either. It was like, he was like in total shock. Because I mean, you know, I know he never expected that to happen. So then I like, well, come on, man, we gotta get out of here, we gotta go. So I ran back to my car and pulled up, and then he came up and turned around and he drove off.
Pac saved my life. The reason why I say Pac saved my life, I got shot in the head, got grazed some other places, but I still got the bullet in my head. It's still there. But for as trying to get him to the hospital, didn't make me realize that I was shot. Because usually when you get shot in the head, the first thing the person do is panic. You know, bam, I'm shot in the head, I'm about to die, you know. And once you do that, you can't drive nowhere. My whole thing was, Pac, he was shot. I'm like, you shot? I'm gonna get you to the hospital. I'm driving, telling him I'm gonna get to the hospital, kick back. Pac looked at me and said, you know what? You need the doctor more than me, you the one shot in your head. And we laughed the whole time going to find our way to the hospital. That's the conversation we had. It wasn't, Pac was a man the whole time. It wasn't that he was like, oh, I'm shot. He cracking jokes. He like, yeah, they shot me. He said, but you shot in your head. Look at your head bleed. Look how much it's bleed. That was Pac. And I'm like, man, shut up. I'm gonna get you to the doctor.
So he was conscious on the way to the hospital?
He was conscious on the way to the hospital. He was conscious in the ambulance. He was conscious after they did the surgery.
I pulled the door open, and when I pulled it open, the guy sitting in the passenger seat, who turns out later to be Tupac, he kind of slumped out, came out with the door. So he's in the car, he's leaning against the door, and as I open the door, he kind of spills out. So he spilled out, and I just kind of grabbed him with one hand, and then I was pointing the gun at Suge with the other, because Suge is still trying to run up to me, and you know, the guy's clearly a threat. He was also just absolutely gushing blood out of the side of his head, but he's acting fine. I mean, he's not incapacitated in any way. He's shooting blood out of his side of his head, and he starts yelling at Tupac, and he's yelling at him, Pac, Pac, and he just keeps yelling, Pac. And I can see, then I look down, I can see Tupac is trying to yell back to Suge, and he's just kind of not physically able to do it. And he's kind of, you know, you can see him sort of mouthing, and they're in eye contact with each other. And he's trying to get something out to yell at Suge, and he can't get the words out. But he's still, you know, he's fully conscious. He's moving. He's kind of squirming, and that's when I looked at him, and there was, you know, an extensive amount of blood on him, and I saw that he had. I couldn't tell exactly where it was, but he had clearly had torso wounds, which are, of course, you know, almost always going to be life-threatening. So I realized then this guy has a good possibility of dying. So I looked at him and I said, you know, what happened? Who shot you? Who did this? You know, what's going on? And he's just really just kind of ignoring me. He's not even, you know, even though I'm right there holding him, he's just kind of not acknowledging my presence, and he's trying to yell back at Suge. Well, I turned around at Suge, and that was the first time I noticed. I saw the back of another bike officer, and he was pushing Suge away from me, and that's the first time I realized there's other cops there, so that made me feel a lot better. So he kind of pushes Suge back, and Suge is still yelling, Pac, Pac. He's trying to yell at him, and then I saw Tupac just, all of a sudden, just in an instant, he went from trying to, you know, kind of squirming, looking at Suge, trying to get the words out, to where you could tell he physically just gave up. He just wasn't able to do it. And he just crossed that line into just quitting and being at peace. And he just kind of laid back and was calm and was no longer looking or trying to do anything. And I could just see that he was just, it's kind of like almost like an athlete or a runner when they hit that wall and it's just like it's over, and you could see that in his face. And I looked at him once again. I said, "What happened? Who did this? Who shot you?" And now he's looking at me, so we're looking at each other in the eyes. And this is kind of the first time he's even acknowledging my presence. And he looked at me, and I could tell he was getting a breath together to tell me. And he looked me right in the eyes, and we looked at each other, and he said, "Fuck you."
I'm like, Pac, we the last one left. When we talking, this is how we talking. He said, "Homie, I'm straight. I love you, homie. I'm gonna be straight. I love you too." Woo, woo. That's what it was.
Yeah, well, when I got there, when I got there, they were talking about they actually had mixed it up. They said Suge got shot in the head, he's about to die, and Tupac just got wounded. And come to find out, it was just the opposite. So we just sat there and talked to the doctors, and they, let them really do their thing, and we really stayed out of the way. But the conversations that were had, I remember talking to Suge and talking to the doctors when I was there, and Tupac told them before they took him upstairs, said, "Suge, man, I just want to tell you that I love you."
Suge said no, he gonna be all right. He was hit in his medallion. So everybody kept partying. We all stayed there and we partied all night.
On Monday, he was not able to speak. He was in no condition to speak.
Get to the hospital, never forget. Tupac tells the doctor, "Doc, I'm not leaving here. Just let me die." And the doctor told me, he said, "Mr. Shakur, let me say something to you." He said, "I'm a doctor." He said, "You're not gonna die on my watch." And Tupac told him, "Doc, I'm not leaving this hospital. I know I'm not gonna leave." I'm sitting up there, why would he say something like that? Because the kid is a fighter.
He has numerous injuries. He has multiple gunshot wounds to the chest. And so, yes, that's always a possibility that a lung could be hit, a lung could collapse, or there could be other internal injuries that might need additional attention in the OR.
Past Monday, by Tuesday, they were optimistic that Tupac would survive this. Now, like I told you, when I got a glimpse of him, I didn't see that. So I'm thinking something must have miraculously happened.
They said he had lost a finger. I can't confirm that because he was wrapped up.
A lung, too?
He lost a part of his lung. He had so many tubes and stuff in him on the bed.
He's in critical condition, and to explain that, we have several different categories how we classify patients, starting with good, fair, serious, and critical. So he is critically injured. He is in the trauma intensive care unit, which is the most intensive care we offer in this institution.
Had tubes and shit all in his mouth, but his eyes was open, and he was looking at me. And me and my sister went in to see him, and he was trying to tell me something. He was shaking the bed. He was, all them bullets in him. He was still shaking the bed, and he wanted to tell me something, but he couldn't. And I was just trying to tell him to chill, just get better. We gon', you know what I'm saying? We're gonna handle it. But
she said that they had him sedated, basically in a medical-induced coma, because they had to remove his lung and his finger, and that she told me that I could go and visit him the next day, but she didn't know if he'd be awake or not.
He remains in critical condition, which was his condition when he arrived here at UMC. I've been told this evening that he is scheduled for some additional surgery, which is not unusual when you have injuries that are this severe. So we're planning on taking him back to surgery sometime this evening.
Tuesday on, he was doing better, and I'm like, okay, I believe in my Heavenly Father, and I'm thinking, a miracle has just taken place, because they were speaking so many good things, that he's getting better, he's going to make a full recovery. With so many positive things. After Tuesday, Monday, not the case.
That she didn't want nobody looking over her baby, and Pac wouldn't have wanted somebody, if they would have heard him, that they're looking over him like that.
I remember him always saying that he didn't want people looking down on him if he was ever incapacitated. He didn't want a funeral. He didn't want people standing over him in certain ways. So I said, I told his aunt when she told me I could go in and see him, this is probably one of my biggest regrets in life. I told her, he ain't want nobody looking down on him. I'll wait till he's awake. And then you tell him I'm here, and I'll go in and I'll see him then, and I'll speak to him. That was on day 3.
I didn't know that Tupac was actually going to die. You get what I'm saying? I'm like, this is Pac. You know, he already got shot before. He's going to be all right. You know, they say he talking and shit. Like, he good. You know what I mean?
Not really talking, but just opening his eyes and giving these eye signals to his mom. You know, eye signals, never talking.
He was talking, so I don't understand how he even turned into a death.
You know, at one point we had heard he was getting better, and that they were going to be moving him to a rehabilitation center. You know, because him being in bed for the many days and losing his lung, that he was going to, you know, have to be able to learn to walk and breathe and, you know, certain things like that to rebuild. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little upset. I don't like talking about this, but, you know, we thought he was going to be better, you know, being you know, being out of it for that long. You know, you start to lose your muscle tone and stuff, so they wanted him to be back in, you know, rehabilitation. They were making arrangements.
They had him alert at one point. They had him alert the last day he died.
Old ladies sitting over talking on the phone like they on a payphone. And when security go over there, it wasn't actually an old lady. It's somebody dressed up like that old lady.
He ain't even dead yet.
Right. They were doing everything that they could to get that report.
Last time I saw my son Tupac was in a hospital bed in North Vegas, Nevada. I'd just gotten off the plane, and after I greeted everybody in the emergency room, and when I walked through the doors, I saw something that resembled my son, but it didn't look like my son last time I saw him. The respiratory and gadgets hooked up to his ear, his nose, his thighs, his testicles, his toes, metal zippers up and down his body from when surgery had been taken as part of his body out. So you would have half-hour visits, so you would just sit there, and the doctor said that he could possibly hear you, and that you could talk to him, but he just cannot answer. So that's what I did. I would sit in the hospital room and talk to my son, and put chapstick on his lips, because the respirator made it very chappy.
He'd move his feet in his hands. And move his feet in his hands. And I remember, I don't know if it's, I think it's when we would stand around and pray and sing. And I wouldn't sing much. His mother asked me to sing just the one time that I was in there, maybe the day or so before he died. And I sang, and while we were standing around the bed, his eyes was kind of like open and you could see it, but it didn't, his pupil didn't look like cloudy. Really, really cloudy. And you see tears that just roll from his eyes into his ears.
What's up? Should I fly to Vegas? She was like, no, he's going to be all right. I was like, cool. So I'm telling everybody he's going to be all right. And then the day he died, I called her. She called me something. She said, he opened his eyes. He's all right. And I told everybody, and I walked in the house, the TV said he's dead.
And then Friday we get, boom, he's dead. And I'm like, that's kind of where we were. Like, they were just saying he was doing better and he was going to be okay. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, the atom bomb just drops. He's gone.
Well, someone called and told her that he was going into cardiac arrest.
Well, I called back to the hospital there, and I talked to the nurse, okay? I have a phone number, her home number. I talked to her, and she goes, look. She goes, I was upstairs, and I heard Code Blue, and I went, what's Code Blue, Mike? Code Blue is when the person is in cardiac arrest. Okay, see, I didn't even know that well. This is her telling me, she goes, I heard the Code Blue call. I ran downstairs, because that's her floor. She goes, she ran downstairs, and when she got in the room, the doctors was in there trying to revive him. Then she said they kind of got him back, and then he went into Code Blue again. And he goes, and then she says that's when the doctor came in and pronounced him dead, and then rolled him out. And then he took him through the back, and they apparently had already called the coroner. The coroner was in the back waiting because they had a back entrance. The coroner was back there waiting, and they put him in there and took off with him.
He was shot 3 times, I believe, or 3 that I identified.
Yeah.
And we had him identified by fingerprints. So I didn't know him personally.
So if it wasn't Tupac Shakur, I don't know who it was. But all the identification we had was authentic.
Would it be possible to fake a coroner's certificate?
Oh, anything's possible. But I don't think it was.
I sorted some things out, and I have here a copy of Tupac Shakur's driver's license, and that was issued in May that year. And this is the official coroner's report. Mm-hmm. And if you compare those two with each other, he had gained 47 pounds in 4 months. That's really strange, is it?
Well, weight on a body is determined by putting the gurney and the decedent on a scale.
Yeah.
And that scale may or may not be accurate. So sometimes the weight is off, and sometimes the height is off. An individual standing up is usually shorter than he is when he's lying down.
Do you know if there's an official death certificate of Tupac Shakur?
Yeah. I have one.
You have one because you issued it.
Well, it's kept in our file. Now, you have to remember that this file is restricted as far as circulation because it's an open murder.
They cremated him already the next day, and that's not a normal procedure, is it?
Yes, it is.
Really?
If the family wants it that way.
This was the photograph of the autopsy of Tupac Shakur. Do you think it would be possible to manipulate a photo in such a way that it would seem real, but actually is fake?
Absolutely so. Sure.
So this could be a fake picture?
Could be. But I don't think it is.
And then that's when she kind of started talking about she's not going to do a service. She's going to have Pac cremated. And I turned and threw up on the floor. I threw up on the floor with her talking about Pac being cremated. Went out in the hallway. Should have told me to calm down. You know, we can't do nothing that's, you know, she the one that make the decision, because we definitely was talk Suge, and they were definitely talking about putting him away like a king. So Ms. Shakur decided to do the cremation.
The person who supposedly cremated Tupac, who his mother wanted done quickly if he passed. So this guy got about $3 million personally for me, cash. And next thing I know, I never heard from the guy since again. He retired and left.
Next, they came with Tupac's box. It's the box that everybody keeps talking about. He was there in a cremation box, a white box.
After Tupac died, the outlaw smoked his ashes. Is that true?
Yeah, it's definitely true. You know, I think it was the night of his had a little memorial for him, you know, with his mom, his family and shit. And we had hit the beach and you know, threw a lot of shit he liked in the beach. You know, some weed, some chicken wings, he loved orange soda, all that kind of shit.
Chicken wings in the ocean.
Yeah, you know, Pac loved that kind of shit. So, you know, we was just giving him our own, farewell. And that night, you know, I forgot which one of us came up with it. You know, they had his ashes and shit. And
Pac came up with that shit. If you listen to Black Jesus, he said, "Last wishes, nigga, smoke my ashes."
No doubt.
You know what I mean? So that was a request. You know what I mean, that he had. Now, how serious he was about it, we took the shit serious.
I wasn't there that night. I ain't have a hand in on that. I wasn't there. I ain't know if them was his ashes or whoever ashes. I wasn't there that night.
Yeah, but when it come down to it, it's not one person in the world with any sense of know I have anything to do with getting Tupac shot.
Truthfully, like I never seen the man dead in the casket. Like, I never been to a funeral or nothing, like, so, you know, if a nigga want to be dead in my eyes, then, and he never appeared to me again, then that mean the nigga dead, whether it's Tupac or not. So I'm just going with the flow like he did. I never seen him in a casket or nothing.
People ask me if I know who killed Tupac, and not saying Tupac dead or alive, but I'm saying if they ask me if I know who killed Tupac, I'm the said, hey, absolutely not.
That day he died, or that day they say he died.
If he really did, you know.
If he really died. What do you mean by that?
I mean, when I left that hospital, me and Pac was laughing and joking.
So I don't see how somebody can turn from doing well to doing bad.
So you seriously think that he might still be alive?
I'm gonna tell you this, Pac, you never know.
Yeah, Pac was a jack of all trades. He could pull off a lot of things. I'm loyal. If I know anything, won't nobody else know. If he wanted to be seen, or if he wanted people not to think he was here, I'm rolling with him in whatever he wanted to do.
But they said he was okay, stable condition. Motherfucking, you go to sleep and this nigga is fucking gone, disappeared, and all this other shit.
Because I believe Tupac didn't die.
Really? You think Tupac's still alive? For real, for real?
Vlad believes everything he reads.
No, I don't believe everything I read, but I actually interview people around the situation.
Okay, that's cool. You interview people that seen the dead body, all that. That's cool. You must live with your truth.
Right.
But
So
I'm telling you,
you believe Tupac's alive right now.
It is a possibility.
Okay.
We don't know where the fuck Tupac at. Ain't nobody seen no fucking body of that nigga. And Gaddafi, Pac was cool, but don't get it fucked up. Just so that everybody get it fucked up. Pac was cool, my man, and all that, my man. But Gaddafi, man, that was motherfucking bro, my nigga. And that shit definitely, it didn't get overlooked. It was just like, you know, it was like, damn, one of the outlaws died. You know, which is, you know, I guess it was what it was, but I definitely feel like it did. You know what I mean? And to this day, motherfuckers still ain't see this nigga Pac dead yet. So niggas ain't even paying attention.
I got a 45-inch bullet in my head, into my skull by grabbing Tupac, pulling him down. That's really what happened. The second part of it is this. People know what happened at the end of the day. You got an individual on there and said, okay, we did this shooting. You know, Puffy was there, Biggie was there. He was already paid for to kill Tupac. This how it happened. And they break everything down to the T. And I'm saying to myself, people say, well, damn, if this dude told the feds and everybody that he's a rip or a former rip out of Compton and they killed Tupac, why didn't he go to jail for murder? Then maybe the question is that Pac really not dead. Pac somewhere else, and maybe they get over. Maybe it's like
You're gonna start a whole nother.
I mean, it's the truth if you really look at it.
Did you see Tupac dead?
Nobody's seen Tupac dead.
He had lived through it for 7 days. He might not even be fucking dead. You know what I'm saying? That's what everybody's saying. Suge saying that shit.
But if you notice, it was a rat on television saying he the one did the shooting. This happened, that happened, this happened, that happened. Right?
Right.
If you think about it, right?
Right.
Why you think nobody been arrested if they said they the one killed Tupac?
Because they're snitching to the police, so they ain't gonna get
arrested. Not just to snitch and be smart, son. Because Tupac not
ain't
dead.
as smart as you should be.
Tupac not dead. If he was dead, they'd be arresting those dudes for murder. You know he was somewhere smoking a Cuban cigar on the island somewhere. You know what I mean?
I hate to be the one to tell you, but he is absolutely positively dead. While I was holding him, he stopped breathing. He lost consciousness, and he never regained consciousness again. And the possibility of somebody surviving those wounds is almost impossible. One of the officers at the scene, who I'm still in touch with regularly, rode with him and Suge Knight in the ambulance to the hospital. He was unconscious. He was intubated immediately, so he never had a chance to say anything else. And for all practical purposes, he was dead when he arrived at the hospital. Technically, he did not die until a day or two later, but that was only because of the skill of the trauma team who kept his heart beating for those 2 days. But he was gone.
When it comes to Tupac, no autopsy has been released. And again, there is no autopsy for us to look at. My team tried to obtain it, we couldn't. To me, I gotta say, it's sort of strange that he died 6 days after a gunshot wound. Usually, he's shot, he stopped the bleeding, right, and then that's it. In his case, for what I'm being told indirectly, is he bled, but later. And I know he was trying to leave the hospital, so the whole thing is a bit strange.
Jesse Jackson arrived and said a prayer at Shakur's bedside. We've been informed that doctors have told the family members that they expect the rap star to once again recover from his injuries.
Tupac actually escaping from the University Medical Center here in Vegas and relocating to New Mexico, getting protection from the Navajo tribe.
You know, they want to put Pac back in prison. And Pac would fake his own death and disappear before he go back to prison. So shit, you answer that.
That man has passed away. We just need to just let that be it.